He opens a closet and there's like all the bananas falling off because there was one guy's only eating huge bananas. He opened another closet, there's another mattress with another guy sleeping in the second closet. I say, okay, this is real. We had no money. We just take $600 last left to go to United flight, and we had 90 days to just make it or break it. We knew that if we couldn't raise, we would go back to Italy broke, and that was it.
I think a lot of people don't know or maybe don't appreciate how fast Kong grew when it actually happened. So there was 7 years of starvation, right? I mean, it was just basically wasn't working.
Every year we do the Founders Award. The Founders Award is 2,555 stock to the best employee of the company.
Yeah.
Why that? It's 255 days of struggle. It's just symbolic. But to remember 7 years of struggle, every year is a ritual.
So Aghi is the founder and CEO of Kong, which was previously Mass-Shape, and we're covering his background from a garage in Milan to now being the CEO of a at-scale company with, I dare say, IPO ambitions at some point?
Long way to go, but that's one of the steps along the way.
Ambitions. All right, so you're doing this kind of API thing. You come to the US on a tourist visa?
Tourist visa, yeah.
And the idea was to raise...
90 days.
Was the idea to raise funding?
Yeah, we had no money. We just take $600 last left to go to United flight through Cincinnati. We went through secondary room. And we landed up through Atlanta first time. Cincinnati was secondary room, and then we're right to San Francisco, and we had 90 days to just make it or break it. We knew that if we couldn't raise, we would go back to Italy broke, and that was it.
So did you raise in those?
Yeah, we raised 2 weeks before departure.
You raised in those
angel rounds. It was we're talking about a decade ago, right? Small checks. It was 50K angel round.
Who was it from?
Was the founding YouTube teams.
Oh, really?
There we go. And here's the funny story.
How did you get introduced to them?
Okay, so there's 2 interesting things that you say, can you redo it again? I won't be able to redo it again.
Yeah.
So number 1 is we went to the Stanford Entrepreneurship Week. At that time, Stanford was doing the Stanford Entrepreneurship Week in February. And it was cool. You met all the entrepreneurs, all the VC were coming there. And there was this entrepreneurship mixer, big party. We arrived, we left late. There was a big, at that point, it was all paper with all the email and the registration. We steal the things with all the email and the registration, and we walk home with that. And that night till 5 a.m., I write all the 400 emails about, hey, you need to know about the Masha. We didn't have time to catch up at the mixer, but I'm happy to give you a pitch tomorrow.
Wow.
I think 370 didn't reply, 30 reply, and 10 were kind of interested. And at the end, 5 or 6 went to meet us. Wow. And then this one person, called Kevin Donahoe, who was the VP, one of the VP funding team of YouTube, came to our...
What's his name?
Kevin Donahoe. And then he started a company for baby books. He sold it. But he said, look, I think this is something. So we wrote a $17,000 check on our air mattress.
17,000?
Yeah. And for us, 17,000 was life.
Yeah.
Versus debt.
Yeah.
So we came from $600 and a few $100. And so then he brought 2 other funding teams. Actually, it was 16,000. We got 15,000. The problem with 15,000 divided 3 was 6. It was too many 6s. It's like, no, we don't want too many 6 in the captive. So we rounded up 17, and we got 51,000 check. Now, the second funny part is we negotiated and closed the deal at Travis Kalanick's house.
Travis Kalanick's house. I remember there was an article about you sleeping on his couch.
Yes, and Airbnb guys as well. But what happened during the negotiation with these guys, we're negotiating and they didn't want. So Travis had, at that time, was this house up in Castro called the Jam Pad, where everybody would go. Aaron Lee would go. And Drew from Dropball was there. We're all going there on the weekends. And I didn't have a place to stay. So actually, Travis gave me his place to stay a few weeks, as long as I would cook carbonara for his better half once a week. And I did that. And then we needed help. They said, come to my kitchen. We negotiate. So we sit on the table. It was myself and Travis Kalanick, and there were the 3 YouTube investors negotiated these convertible notes at like 50% discount, something crazy. We were desperate. And so I said, okay, well, I don't want to take this deal. Like, screw that. I said, okay, we're going to leave. And I was very naive, 20 years old. Okay, Guy will come back. And Travis come to me, put the hands and say, if these guys leave, you're never going to see them again and nor the money.
Wow.
So let me do something else.
Wow.
So you guys stay here and figure it out, the counter offer. Aghi and I go to the bathroom. We close each other in and we come back in 10 minutes. So Travis brought me to the bathroom, locked the door of the house so these guys don't leave. Went to the bathroom and we stayed there 10 minutes. Go back, another round of negotiation. Back to the bathroom. So 3-4 times. At the end, we handshake on the deal.
And
just
what was
tinily
it?
better, like 42% convertible. It's kind of instead of 50. And it was a higher cap. And that's it. And then we shake the hand and that was it.
That's crazy. So I remember you had the Quora, like the top Quora post for living on like $14,000 a year in San Francisco. You had raised $51,000.
Yeah.
And now you had to make that last as long as possible. So maybe talk about the next stretch.
What happened is obviously we got 50. We got to come back. We are illegal in 2 weeks. So we went back to Italy, and we came back with a B1, which you could be there. We can be here 6 months. But how? We have no social security number. We have no credit score. Nobody. So you have into this American system very different than Italy system. You have to enter into a new system, and we had zero anything. So we couldn't pay our salary because we didn't have SSN. We didn't have a legal visa to pay ourselves, all of that. So the company...
Did you have employees at this point?
No.
It's just you two?
It was 3 of us. It was Michele was the third co-founder back then. But we did 1,000 and about 1,100 monthly promissory note that the company would give us, and we would have to live in 3 with $1,000 a month. That would
so
be
you
forgiven.
were living off of $1,000 a month?
In 3.
Three people were living off $1,000
yeah, 14,000
in San Francisco.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
It was cheaper.
No,
right?
what year was this?
2009, 2010.
Even then,
2010.
Even then, it says impossible. $1,000 a month for 3 people?
I tell you how we did it. So we live it in on Airbnb somewhere else at like $100, and all in the same mattress.
Wow.
And we were going to Valencia. I don't know if you do this in Valencia.
Did you have an office?
No, we were working out of Starbucks. And we were living in Valencia, and we were buying rice, beans, and tuna and pasta. And the reason is that we had to find the right amount of carbs and protein at the cheapest way possible. And that was the combination of highest amount of carbs and protein at the cheapest way possible. And that's how we made it. Like we never eat out, we never buy it. We did everything in house. We cooked in the kitchen Airbnb, rice, beans, or tuna pasta. In fact, we eat so much tuna pasta with tomato that Marco and I, when we see now tuna pasta, we almost throw up because we're just running on tuna pasta every single day.
So how long did this last?
That last so March 2000, April 2010. A year and a few months.
And what were you doing this time? I know what Marco was doing this time. He's writing code. What were you doing?
I was writing blog, building the website, calling the sign up, talking with every sign up on the website that was talking to us and trying to figure out. I was doing mix of B devs, HTML, CSS, slicer, talking with investor too as you start to build the seed rounds.
Yeah.
Trying to do some recruiting that never worked because nobody wanted to work for illegal Italians that will disappear. So a lot of mistakes and this figure things out.
All right. So take us to the seed round. So somebody decided to give you a proper round at some point.
So then a year later we re-architect. So we went to Honolulu on the beach, on Moana Beach, and we thought about all these APIs we're aggregating. I think the word is actually we see now, finally now, but 10, 15 years ago, it wasn't ready. They were to like build apps on the fly through APIs with drag and drop. We were too far ahead. We're missing pieces. But I say, hey, we are wrapping a lot of APIs. Actually, that assembly line visual still hold. We just have to pivot it and build an API marketplace where all the APIs, producer and consumers, they can come together. And so we pivot that. We relaunch it with TechCrunch, all the stuff.
Okay, so you originally were doing this kind of drag and drop composable apps builder thing. It's so funny how many companies go through this like exact journey. And then you're like, okay.
With HTML5.
Wow. And then you're like, okay, no, we need to build a marketplace.
Exactly. Because, the economy, this API economy will come. It's not just apps, it will be APIs. And we build a marketplace, we launch it, we got decent tractions on long tail. And that was already the summer of 2011.
Yeah.
after pivoting Hawaii. So we launched very fast, boom, 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 and then we raised.
Wait,
after
was the Hawaii on the last of the money from?
No, because San Francisco to Honolulu, I think at that time it was like $300. So it's like with our 51K, we remember we're living like on tuna pasta, rice and beans in Valencia, in Mission. In this historic building, middle of nowhere, Mission,
and you guys
working
same mattress
and things. It's
That's
like
unbelievable.
At some point, I remember, wake up in the morning. I gotta go. I need to go to Honolulu. We could do our walk on the beach and thinking about our future or no future because we knew this was going no future. Our money were starting to drain and we needed to pivot. And that's where we had the idea, let's go for the pivot. And then we come back, we did crazy. I remember us building the website. Marco was going crazy. The third co-founder was building all the Java backends and launched it fast. And I've got a little bit of TechCrunch press. At that time was Read Write Web. Yep. This other one was Mashable.
Yep.
And so somehow we got covered by all of them, which now like crazy. And then and boom. And then we raised and then it started the seed round phase.
From who?
So at that time, we went through a lot of iterations, but where we ended up was NEA leading the seed round, and then Index co-leading to NEA, and then we got a bunch. And then
in the seed, so Volpe did the.
Yeah. So what happened is actually the first checks were George Zachary from CRV back then. He didn't like lead the round, but he was the first 100K commit. And so with that, he said we have CRV 100K. At that point, they had a seed program, very unusual back then. So we went to NEA, and he said we're gonna lead this round. At that point, also they started a seed program, 500K. And then we went through, and then I met Mike Volpe that just moved to San Francisco to launch Index US. It was like him and Danny Reimer through there somewhere. And they also started Angel, a seed program, and they wrote another big checks. And then we got a long tail. It was likely Jeff Bezos and Eric Schmidt into the funds. And so we got this combination.
Bezos and Eric Schmidt?
So again, that's a serendipity that I don't know we can replicate. So what happened is, Jeff Bezos, I knew he was special about marketplace as a business, APIs and developers. AWS was just starting to take off. It was this hidden secret. So
this is 2011?
Yeah. So Amazon was maybe a $50 billion company then, $80 billion company. So what happened is I hired the lawyer of his family office for Meshape. And after we hired for doing the seed round, as the seed round was going along, I say, by the way, since you're also the lawyer of the family office and Bezos expeditions, can you introduce me? to Jeff Bezos? That's what we do. So it's a PG cold call. And then he was on the road with his brother, going around with his brother on the road in Texas. And you actually really want to put more and invest. Boom. So that was Jeff Bezos. What do you get from Jeff Bezos? You get the brand. So we get a dinners, a year strategizing of things. But obviously it was the big brand. And then second, Eric Schmidt, we were working this co-working space. And what happened is we were the only startup that stayed the latest in the night after this other startup that was doing Expedia for cruise ships. They just raised from NEA and Eric Schmidt. And at the end, they saw us working until 3 a.m., 4 a.m. They would leave at 2. When they knew we were fundraising, and the investor asked, who's the hardest worker than you? And say, this guy's next to us. And so they introduced us to the Eric Schmidt fund, and that's how Eric Schmidt invests.
Wow.
Totally unrelated.
All right. So now this brings us to 2011.
A lot of luck.
So what was your total seed funding you raised?
At that time, it was very big. It was 1.5. It's like, wow, huge seed round.
I got to say.
In 2010, 11.
I got to say, there's a lot of optimism. It's an optimistic retrospective view to be like, there was 3 of you on a mattress for a year, and then you say you were lucky.
Illegally.
That sounds pretty unlucky to me.
No longer to jail.
All right, so now you have your seed fund, Mashapes going.
So then we raised the seed. All right, now it's real. We got to get these visas. So we went back to Italy, go to the American embassy, blah, blah, blah. Do the letter of recommendations. Actually, Sam Altman was one of the guys that wrote me a letter of recommendation when he was CEO of Looped.
No kidding.
Which I met we were going to the NEA retreat, and I sit next to him in the bus, and we go to Pebble Beach to the NEA retreat, and we spent 3 hours together. And I said, by the way, I'm illegal here. Can you write me a letter of recommendation for my O1 visa?
No kidding.
And he wrote me. So I have this big thing of how great I am.
From Sam Altman, that's great.
From Sam Altman, letter of recommendation. You got to get this guy in the country, and no matter what. So we got these 5 letters, and And I get this O1 visa, and finally I got the visa. So finally I can come here, I can get a WeWork space, and we start to hire, and we got 7 people, and Mark also get the visa. Mark has also, because of the Love Book, he never got to college or nothing. So it was the hardest visa to do. So we figured it out, more letter recommendations for him. We brought him there. We stay here, blah, blah, blah. We build a year, we grow. Now, but at that time, like you needed like $1 million, let's say $1 million revenue to take a good Series A. For a marketplace, you need $1 million in gross volume. We were like at 50K. So a lot of traction, but not a lot of revenue. But we went through a 3-4 month Series A raise, and CRV led, and then Index led the round.
Was it Dev that?
Yeah. Yeah, because George Zachary was more a consumer, so he passed the thing to Dev that just joined more on the enterprise side. I remember Dev that called me like a Sunday at 6 a.m. to go for a walk to decide to invest or not. And he knows I'm a night owl, and he just Sunday 6 a.m. to go down to Palo Alto, which I had to rent a zip car. There were the zip cars. There was no Uber, and go down there and then go for a few walks. And I decided to invest because he was always actually a big believer on APIs as assembly line. He could see that.
Yeah.
Maybe he wasn't sure marketplace was the right execution, but the theme, he was a big believer. And I think like us, like he came to see us sleep in the same mattress. He wanted to really see that we're not like bullshitting the big drama story. It was really drama. Actually, he came to the Hacker House because we moved to Hacker House in South Park at that time, where we're sleeping and working there with the 7 team. And he opens a closet, and there's like all the bananas falling off because it was one guy's only eating huge bananas. Yeah. You open another closet, there's another mattress with another guy sleeping in a second closet. Wow. It's okay, this is real.
Wow. How big was your A?
6.5 million.
Oh, so for you that must have been a lot of money.
6.5 million. Yeah, I went out with this PowerPoint. Let's raise a 10 million series. At that point, that was like the big thing. We ended up at 6.5, and I say. That science, it was like, when we saw it, it was like, like maybe we got a shot.
So at some point you decided that the market wasn't working.
The market wasn't working. And I think, so we raised this and we hired more. We moved to a new office, 25 people, like the usual post-race honeymoon. And I remember this thing like 6 months after, the business wasn't really doing anything. So it was one board meeting that we just cooked pasta for the board members at that time, because that was like 2 years before you joined us. And there was nothing to talk about from business.
The issue was you couldn't monetize, or there was there's a graduation problem. Like these marketplaces are very tough.
So the idea of the marketplace, that when I was staying with Airbnb founders, I learned that the marketplace could be the biggest, more powerful business in the world. Like you don't even have to innovate once you get liquidity. It's just, you can disrupt. Look at eBay. You look at eBay. You can kill.
Yeah.
So I thought like, there's all this API. You can build a marketplace liquidity. It'll be like the AWS of market. And so we noticed though that in our case, it was a developer API marketplace. So to a marketplace to work, you need to have a long tail of low power people. If you have concentrated in a few high power, marketplace doesn't work. Like Airbnb houses, like millions of people with low power. So that was one. 2, you need to have exclusivity somewhat, like the door to access that marketplace supply has to be through the marketplace. APIs, you could Google and go through the website, you can go through the marketplace. APIs at that time, power of law for public APIs was on the Twilio, the Stride. There were 30 that matters and 3,000 that didn't matter much. So it was also this long tail power. And third thing was quality. Like you were running a cloud marketplace, you couldn't actually maintain the quality of the supply. You would always get blamed for it. And there was no trust. And so I think because of that, it got to $1.5 million in gross revenue, but it never became this Airbnb or Uber of APIs. That is like 10%. Yeah. And it was also losing margin on AWS. So I could never make the economics in that model. I could never make the economics works, even if this thing would have scaled. So then we go there. It's like, okay, we're a year here. We're burning out. We're running out of money. And so we built this massive API engine behind the marketplace, API gateway, that was powering 20,000 APIs of this long tail, doing billing, rate limiting, routing, caching, authentication, authorization, logging, all of that. We built it 3 times, and the third time was the great one. And we say, wait a second, every company will become an API company. Why we don't take this engine and we give it to the whole world? And that was the beginning of open source, Mongo. And so boom, we open source Kong.
What was your runway at the time that you open sourced Kong?
So we open sourced in April 15. We had to take a bridge of $2 million to go another year. Because
was it an insider bridge?
Yeah, we had to take an extensions because we were out of gas.
From Devdut and Mike?
Yeah, they give us an extension on the $2 million because we were out of gas. Like we would have died otherwise.
Wow. So you released, I remember when Kong released, it was actually a really big deal. When was that? 2015. 15.
Yes,
that was 2015. That was a really big deal. I remember.
It took off, boom.
Yeah, so this is when you and I started talking about your raise. You're raising the B.
You came at the right time. So before, like, these guys make no sense. Okay, now it starts to make sense.
Well, that was even a tough raise for you, just because the company had been around for 7 years.
Yeah,
like a marketplace. Like Kong had just come out, and it was taking off, but like it only been a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months, and so honestly, I'll tell you what did it for me is we were doing all the work, and like the GitHub stars checked out. Your story is phenomenal. Your command of the business is great, but it just wasn't enough. But then while we were doing the diligence, like I kept getting these kind of serendipitous, like somebody had used Kong and loved it. I remember, didn't like somebody stay in like your Airbnb and like loved Kong and like, and then you forwarded that to me. And so they're just kind of like all of this, zeitgeist around Kong, and as a result of that, I'm like, oh, this is clearly a phenomenon.
Yeah, I remember I was spamming you with emails of every prospect or customer user that were saying, you say Kong usage, just nonstop. Like it was blowing up the inbox.
Yeah. So how close were you to running out of money for the B?
So after Bridge, there were weeks.
Jeez.
Yeah, but I was very...
Nothing is ever going to stress you again in your entire life because you've been so close to at least business so many times. Because I actually remember when we went to the office, it felt dead. It felt like basically...
we were dead. But we just didn't know about it.
You were like 2 weeks from being dead. I mean, it felt...
We were like Bumblebee, that it flies, but it's not supposed to fly. And we keep going.
No, I remember that very, very well.
You were like, yeah, this guy's been there a while. I think they're going to, whatever. They raise money and then they're going to give up. I said, and it was tough. And I think if we go back and say, I don't know we were able to replicate all the sequence that happens, all the things that happens. And I remember we went, and then we had that great sushi with Mark Andreessen and you and I, and we sealed the deal. And Marco?
No, the end of 2016 we closed. And since then, the company's just been remarkable. I mean, there was kind of an announcement recently that it crossed 100 million, which is now actually quite a while back.
A year and a half ago, yeah.
A year and a half ago.
Yeah.
So
it was in a year and a half, it's 10 years, where we were like, when you invested, we were ARR less than $1 million.
Yeah.
Less than $1 million of ARR.
Do you remember?
Not even $1 million ARR. 500K probably.
Do you remember once? I remember. So you had a great first year, and then I told you, I said, listen, if you if you hit 10 million or whatever it was, I'll buy you a car. Remember that?
I did. Oh, actually, we have in the new office now. I need to send you a picture.
Well, there's a funny story about this, and so like you do it. So like I think you grow like 10x that year.
So that 8X? Year we went from 2 million of ARR to 10.
That was right.
And the plan I think was 6 or 7.
Yeah. And then I went
5x.
I checked with compliance and I'm like, can I buy Aghi a cheap car? And they said the maximum for a gift is whatever it is. And so I'm like, crap. So I ended up buying you the best model car I could find.
From Japan, I think.
Yeah. I spent a long time actually looking for this model car.
It's the 280 GT.
Yeah, that's right. So great. So I would love to shift. So I think this is the most remarkable Silicon Valley startup story that I know of, that I'm close to, and I kind of having one.
That will make a movie one day.
They will have to make a movie one day, yeah. I would love to like kind of shift towards how you think about product, how you think about markets, and then kind of move towards AI. So you actually have seen a number of shifts now, right? You saw the cloud come, you saw the shift to APIs. So maybe just talk a little bit about how you view this current shift with AI. Is it fundamentally different? Is it the same? Does it change how you think about yourself as a leader? Like, how is your view at a high level?
So the big thing is, I'll start with API first. So obviously we become this API infrastructure company.
Yeah, maybe we should just describe what Kong is now before we actually do that.
So we left with this pivot and we open source Kong API Gateway, took off, and we become an enterprise company. We rebrand Kong Inc. And we start to build all sort of API infrastructure to run, manage, and secure your internal or external APIs. So you have software, you have microservices, you have 10, 100,000 of APIs. We're kind of this highways that makes them run, and you have rate limiting. Like if APIs were cars, you got guardrails, speed bump, speed cameras, gas stations, tolls, bumps, guardrails, everything, ambulance, and we provide all the infrastructure to make sure that the API connectivity runs for small company, big company, all of that. Now, in this transition you mentioned, what really drove, I think, this explosion of cloud APIs was the workload moving from on-prem to the cloud. The second transition is breaking down the monolith to microservices. It creates more and more APIs, the big data and all that. It creates event streaming, all that. So this just data in motion is much higher than, it's becoming much higher than like data rest or data in use than before.
But in a way, when you were starting the company, you were drafting on a big transition, right? Which was the breaking down of the monolith and the shift to cloud.
The killer.
Right. And so
that was the key.
Yeah.
I think before there were all these archaic legacy solutions in APIs, but they were not built for the transition to the cloud and breaking down the monoliths into microservices and high scale, decentralized architecture. I mean, from your time, Anis, like we kind of invented the control plane, data plane separation at the API management, API control plane level. Nobody was doing it before.
I got to say, I think a lot of people don't know or maybe don't appreciate how fast Kong grew when it actually happened. So there was 7 years of starvation, right? I mean, it was just basically wasn't working.
No, actually, I know, and you don't, this, but like every year we do the Founders Award.
Yeah.
The Founders Award is 2,555 stock to the best employee of the company.
Yeah.
Why that? It's 255 days of struggle to remember every day, which is 7 years.
That's amazing.
It's 7 years.
I didn't know that.
Every year the company has to go. They get 2,055. It's just symbolic.
Yeah, of course.
But to remember 7 years of struggle, every year is a ritual.
And there was this crazy diving catch, which, Marco does the greatest Kong. He throws it out on the market and it catches off. But once it did, the company grew incredibly quickly.
And we had 45 competitors when we started.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
Now there's probably 30.
But even then at the time, yeah, well, Kong broke away pretty quickly. So, I mean, in recent years, it's clearly been the leader on this.
Yeah.
And that only happens, I think, if there's just clearly a market need. The market also kind of did you a favor in that, like, MuleSoft got acquired and Apigee got acquired too.
Yeah.
Right?
It was right. Yeah, 17 MuleSoft got acquired. Apigee got acquired in 16.
That's right. Yeah. So like in a way, kind of like there was consolidation and you broke out as this leader. So you kind of navigated this transition from, cloud to breaking up the microservices. You built the control plane for APIs. You're considered now like the leader independent for sure. In the API space, Kong is the leader independent. There's no question of that. But now you're facing another market shift, which is kind of this movement to AI. And so do you view this as directly impactful, adjacent, accretive? Like, how are you as CEO viewing this?
Yeah. I think, and again, it's not like it was like any Midas things, but the market came at us in AI by creating more APIs. What that means, agents are going to consume internet in a very different way than how human did. There's not any more websites, scroll, click, up and down, applications. They're going to be there, but not as relevant as before. Agents are going to programmatically exchange labor, get tasks done through programming interface, whether it's classic API REST, MCP protocols, which is like Duolingo for APIs, makes them speak English, whatever it is, the protocol. But machines consuming internet is going to be very different than human consuming internet. Human consuming internet would be through UI. Machine consuming internet is through programming interface. That's the huge shift that we are now capturing and powering and making sure the enterprise think about AI connectivity. And at the end of the day, behind the scene, it's all APIs.
We had that board meeting. What was it? Yesterday.
Yes.
And what I found actually pretty remarkable is how many more banal use cases there are around AI, right? We can talk about agents, and I think it's worth talking about, and I agree with you, but it also feels like there's like a lot of just basic stuff like key management for, like a lot of the companies are spending a lot of money on these AI models, right? So it's great to be able to have monitoring, billing, key rotations, all of that stuff. So are you actually seeing like a non-agentic draft now?
Yeah, I think so. Where I think the word is a bit of stack. Okay, you have these AI companies like Pure that are just building models, yada yada, and then you have this wrapper company that are trying to solve HR issue, whatever through AI. Yeah. Then you have these LLMs that have APIs to talks. Companies like Anthropic, a lot of revenue through APIs, all that. What is missing is the infrastructure to make those AI talks and run, and that's what we do now with AI Gateway and a lot of products. But at the core, the boring problem, like you mentioned, authentication, authorization. You can be AGI as much as you want, but at the end, an agent gets stuck if he has to authenticate. And to authenticate, you got to get an API key. You need a human in the loop to get the API key authenticate. But if you can provide infrastructure at the beginning, you can provision and automate key provisioning, key rotation, authentication. So once you're there, you can unleash your LLM, your agents to just roam free without getting stuck every time for authentication, authorization, because you're already provisioning all these keys. I think that's where we want to our customers.
So maybe just assume for this part of our discussion that whoever's listening is pretty familiar with AI API infrastructure, right? Do you think that the way API infrastructure looks in 6 months or a year or 2 years is dramatically different because of AI? Or is it that the infrastructure that we have in place that we understand today evolves to also service agents in ways that are pretty obvious? Like, to what extent do you think this is like transformational on the infrastructure layer versus like more of a transition?
I think you cannot do AI if you're not API first. It's just, you don't have the mouth and the ears to a model. And so that's how AI talks. So the way we know about API infrastructure, it will evolve, it won't change, but API traffic and AI traffic, they're converging. So the classic API calls, yes, but also when you move tokens, is an API call. And let's say intelligence will be sold through tokens. Every earning release is about tokens, but behind each token, there are calls. The payloads move tokens. So they're kind of converging, and what we are calling our building is a unified API and AI connectivity platform that it helps you navigate this transition as you're managing classic API traffic, as you're managing agent traffic, as you manage MCP traffic, as you manage LLM traffic. I think it will all converge into a unified program. And that's how I think intelligence will move. And it's an evolutionary steps in 2-3 years. But we already see MCP traffic growing every quarter.
I mean, I see even really basic things like for developers, this is evolving very quickly. So for example, for fun, I develop using Cursor. I used to be a professional developer, in a previous life. Even knowing what APIs existed in a company required a ton of reading through docs or some weird search. And it feels like now, especially like if you have something like Kong, which has all the metadata and has the catalog, and then you can integrate into something like Cursor. And so not only does the agent itself know about the APIs, but you can expose it to you. I mean, it feels like a lot of even the development paradigm is shifting now because we can start surface these things to developers.
Yeah, I think we can be an enabler to help large companies, small companies to get into the hands of more developers or more Cursor. Because it's also an API. We can provide you that infrastructures and all of that. As you see from Yesterday Board Meeting, we have a very exciting roadmap that is going in that direction. So those are all enabled. I think here's the big bet. The big bet is what happened in Microsoft, because I grew up in Italy and you don't really study a lot of math. You just study history. But what you learn from it is that it doesn't exactly repeat, but it reads. It's just there's always an analogy. So what we see with microservices, what happened? We first build rate limiting and authentication 10 times, 100 times, 50 times into the Python framework, the JavaScript framework, the TypeScript framework, the Java framework, whatever, PHP, blah, blah, blah. At some point, it didn't make any sense. Let's abstract everything to a gateway pattern. And we move all this connectivity logic to the gateway and then dispatch to the right service, no matter what language. The same thing, I think, is going to happen in LLMs. At first, you have one enterprise use one big LLMs. Now they're going to use 5, 10, 100, small LLM, medium, large, whatever. Once you get to, you don't do tokens relimiting, token authentication in each LLM using the framework, the LangChain, whatever. Eventually, same thing happening in Microsoft. You will abstract that to a gateway partner once again. And that's where I think AI Gateway will have the same analogy and dispatcher to write connectivity logic to the right LLM versus rewriting in each LLM. I think that's the big bet that we make that happens in microservices, happens in how enterprise will run and govern hundreds of LLMs.
Great. Well, listen, as we wrap this up, I think it'd be great to kind of end with like any sort of recommendations for people that are listening to learn a bit more about how kind of AI is shifting the API landscape, or maybe, some advice on...
Don't start a company. No, I'm joking.
Maybe advice on kind of like, how to start thinking about getting ready for that.
I think I said before, like there is a lot of focus on model pre-training, tuning, all of that. But a key thing is the connectivity layer, how LLMs, agents, whatever, will talk to each other, how you run. I think a lot of the traffic will be very strategic, and you have to build in the startups or the enterprise to manage that AI connectivity into your next apps, your next internal tools, your next customers.
And for the budding founders that are listening to like the most hardcore Silicon Valley struggle story ever, what advice do you give to them?
I think what I learned over a decade of life.
Do you ever think, I just have to, do you ever think that like maybe you should have cut your losses and tried to start it over again? Like, do you ever think that would have been the right thing?
Never.
No.
Never. The reason is I could never visualize myself going back to the airport in Italy and my dad picking me up and say, how's it going? And it's just like, would fail with my tails and my legs. Like I would have died here without food. Like I cannot do that. And so that never crossed through the head.
Shivers. That was so good.
But never, like that's the visual that every time I even start to, I had that visual and immediately say, I'm not going back like that.
Oh.
But the thing to advise is, it always takes longer than what we think. It is good to take a trend the last 10 years, 20 years, because you have time to grow into and do a lot of mistakes and building. And just you have to generally believe it in this trend versus following glitters, because it's going to take longer than what you think. As a leader, as a human, as a market, as a product, as a revenue, it's always going to take longer. So take something that lasts and just put 110% on it every day, and then it will compound. Keep the burn rate low in the early days.
Don't die.
Don't die. Like don't quit. Those are I think the things I learned along the way.
Aghi, it's been a privilege and an honor working with you these past few years, and thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
Likewise. Thank you, Martin.